Steelers Nation, the whole conversation around this team right now isn't about drama, isn't about hype, and definitely isn't about keeping fans guessing. It is about something way more fundamental to winning football games, and that is clarity. When you're heading into the final full practice of the week, you cannot afford to be unsure about who is leading the offense. Players need rhythm, timing, and confidence, and that only comes when everyone knows exactly who is taking that first snap. An offensive line blocks differently when it knows the style of the quarterback behind it. Tight ends adjust their releases based on how quickly that quarterback typically gets rid of the ball. Receivers benefit when they know whether they're working with someone who prefers timing routes or someone who extends plays. This isn't a guessing game situation. This is basic preparation. The strange part is that even with all eyes looking for hints, there really was nothing concrete from practice the day before. The only detail that came out was that Rodgers was listed as limited, which tells you absolutely nothing about true functionality. The coordinator kept everything vague, speaking in that classic coach way that explains a lot without actually revealing anything. He praised the professionalism of the backup, talked about having contingency plans ready, and reminded everyone that the league is full of situations where a team has to adapt at the last second. That's all fine, but eventually you reach the point in a game week where eventually becomes right now, and that moment is here. And again, this isn't about fans starving for updates. This is about a locker room needing to lock in. Once the calendar flips to the final practice day, the preparation phase can't be scattered. Quarterbacks need reps with the right personnel groups. The coordinator needs to tailor the script for the game. Even the defense benefits because knowing the offensive rhythm changes how the scout team reps look. It all ties together, and pushing the decision all the way to Sunday morning would only add unnecessary noise. When you delay something so central, it drags a cloud of uncertainty over every athlete who is trying to narrow their focus heading into hostile territory. Some people have been comparing this week to situations from Rodgers' previous stop, where minor injuries sometimes stretched into full-week sagas about whether he would or wouldn't play. And none of that is rumor. Every bit of it was documented in real outlets from that region. No one is saying that this current week in Pittsburgh is a repeat of that, but the similarities are hard to ignore. When someone has a pattern of pushing themselves to start even when banged up, it naturally creates questions inside the building. And when you mix that with a team trying to stay in control of its division, you get a week like this. One full of waiting, watching, and hoping that the decision gets made for the right reasons instead of emotional ones. Now, let's be clear about something. This is not a debate about crowning Rudolph some permanent starter. Nobody is launching that conversation, and it would make no sense to do that. If Rodgers is healthy enough to play at his usual level, he is the starter. That has been the expectation from the moment he signed. What this actually comes down to is much simpler. Who gives this team the best chance to win an important road game right now? And looking at the last month, it is hard to believe that someone playing through a wrist fracture, someone who has been clearly hesitant to take hits, somehow becomes a better option than the quarterback who just stepped in and led the team to a win days ago. That isn't a slight, it's just a realistic evaluation of where each player is at this moment. The head coach has a long track record of leaning toward the star when in doubt, especially at the quarterback position. Everyone remembers how much influence the previous franchise quarterback had in the building. That history matters because decision-making tendencies do not appear out of thin air. So yes, it is fair to wonder if the glow of a big name might weigh on the timing of the call. But if the staff truly wants to protect the long-term health of their starting quarterback, prevent a fractured wrist from getting worse, and still keep this roster moving toward January football, then the obvious solution is not complicated. Put the healthiest quarterback on the field and go in a winnable game. And that game, of course, happens to be against Chicago, a team that is better than many people around the league are willing to admit. You look at their 7 wins and see teams with losing records, and the immediate reaction is to brush it off. But you dig deeper and realize they have built an offense that ranks among the most productive in the league. Their yardage averages are not inflated by one fluky performance. They consistently move the ball, especially on the ground. Their running game is one of the most balanced in football, with two backs sharing the load and each ripping off strong yards per carry. Add a quarterback who can escape the pocket and pick up chunks of yardage himself, and you suddenly have a team that forces defenses to stay honest on every snap. And while their defense does not jump off the page statistically, there is one category where they absolutely dominate. They lead the entire league in turnover differential, which is often the single biggest predictor of who wins games in this sport. They take the ball away more than anyone else, with interceptions and forced fumbles scattered across their rotation of defenders. That alone makes them dangerous, because a team that can steal possessions can mask weaknesses elsewhere. And when you're facing an opponent that thrives on extra opportunities, the last thing you want is to send a quarterback onto the field who is protecting a bad wrist and already struggling with ball security. So yes, beating Chicago would be a meaningful win, not because of narratives or labels, but because this league is as balanced as ever. Almost every team has stumbled at least twice. Close games happen everywhere. Even teams viewed as rebuilding pull off big performances. That is the nature of modern football. It means you cannot afford to get caught up in whether a victory counts as impressive or not. You take every single win, bank it, build from it, improve from it. Because if this roster wants to play deep into the season, the only thing that matters right now is winning the game in front of them, with the quarterback who is healthiest, sharpest, and fully capable of executing the plan. And building off all of that, the focus now shifts to what this matchup truly demands from Pittsburgh on every single snap. This is not the kind of game where you can show up expecting the opponent to self-destruct. Chicago plays with a stubbornness that refuses to let games slip away early. They stay in striking distance even when things are not clicking, and that trait becomes incredibly dangerous in the fourth quarter. If you let them hang around long enough, they will take advantage of one mistake, one busted coverage, one poorly timed turnover, and suddenly the entire momentum of the afternoon flips upside down. That is exactly why the Steelers cannot treat this week as a casual walkthrough. Every detail matters, every route matters, every blocking adjustment matters. You win games like this with discipline, not flash. This is also the kind of game where Pittsburgh's defense has to embrace its identity instead of chasing something that does not fit its personnel. They're not built to win shootouts right now, and they're not built to sit back passively and hope the opponent makes errors. This group succeeds when it forces chaos on its own terms, when the linebackers are flying downhill, when the edge rushers dictate tempo, when the secondary plays aggressive without losing awareness of mobile quarterbacks. That is the formula that lifts this team. And against a quarterback who can extend plays the way Chicago's young leader can, discipline and pursuit angles become just as important as sacks and turnovers. One missed tackle against a quarterback who likes to break, contain, can easily turn into a gain of 20 or 30 yards, and suddenly the defense is scrambling. On the other side of the ball, the Steelers absolutely have to start faster than they have in recent weeks. Too many times this season, they have waited until the second half to find any rhythm. And while that worked against a couple of teams, it is not a sustainable recipe. The best way to quiet a hostile stadium and take control is to come out with purpose on the opening drive. It does not have to be a touchdown, but it has to look coordinated. It has to set a tone. A scripted drive executed cleanly tells your opponent, your own sideline, and your quarterback that you can control the pace. And if the starter this week ends up being the backup who stepped in so effectively last time, giving him early completions and manageable reads would help him settle into the game rather than forcing him into desperation mode early. Another thing Pittsburgh must be prepared for is how physical Chicago's front seven plays the run. They might give up yardage in other areas, but when they swarm the box, they do it with a purpose that can shut down early down attempts. That's where creativity matters. This offense cannot afford to go run, third and long all afternoon. They need motion, misdirection, and plays that help stretch the defense horizontally before taking shots vertically. A balanced attack does not mean running the ball for the sake of it. It means keeping the defense uncomfortable, unpredictable, and forced into communication before the snap. And once that communication starts to crack, the openings naturally appear. You can also expect Chicago to test Pittsburgh's receivers at the line of scrimmage. They play with a feisty attitude in the secondary, even if their numbers do not always reflect shutdown ability. When corners challenge routes early, it disrupts timing, especially with quarterbacks who rely on rhythm. That is another reason why the Steelers must make their decision quickly this week. Timing takes repetition, and repetition takes clarity. Whoever lines up under center needs uninterrupted practice reps with his receivers. You cannot replicate those details on a whiteboard. You only build that trust on the field, in the pocket, with defenders buzzing near your legs and pressure collapsing around you. That is why uncertainty is the true enemy of preparation. The mental side of this matchup also cannot be overlooked. Road games played in colder weather have a different tone, especially in a city where the crowd wakes up the moment the home team shows signs of life. Silent counts, communication adjustments, and keeping composure after setbacks all become part of the battle. And this young Steelers offense still has moments where frustration shows. You cannot afford that in Chicago. You cannot afford arguments, miscommunications, or plays where players look around for flags instead of regrouping for the next huddle. Composure is how you eliminate the unnecessary mistakes that decide close games. Defensively, one player Pittsburgh absolutely has to keep under control is their shifty back who has been averaging nearly 5 yards per carry. What makes him dangerous is not just his speed, it's his patience. He waits for blocks to develop, and once he finds the crease, he hits it decisively. Arm tackles will not bring him down, and over-pursuing only opens up counter lanes. The Steelers need gap discipline from every level of the defense, especially the interior linemen. Those guys are the difference between a 2nd and 8 and a 2nd and 3, and against an offense that thrives on manageable downs, that distinction matters more than most people realize. But the real X factor for Chicago is their ability to create short fields with takeaways. That is why ball security becomes the single most important point for Pittsburgh's offense. You can move the ball effectively all afternoon and still lose if you hand the opponent extra possessions. A quarterback dealing with a wrist injury is naturally at higher risk, which again reinforces the importance of choosing the healthier option. Fumbles on sacks, wobbly throws that sail too high, misfires on quick outs. Those are the kind of mistakes that feed Chicago's defensive confidence. And once that defense gets rolling, they play with an intensity and swagger that becomes contagious across the entire roster. Special teams cannot be ignored either. In a game expected to be tight, field position carries enormous weight. One poor punt, one stalled return, and suddenly you are asking your defense to defend a short field yet again. The Steelers need clean execution, smart decisions on returns, and a kicking game that delivers under pressure. These are the types of small details that often separate winning teams from merely competitive ones late in the season. Another layer to this matchup is the evolving leadership inside Pittsburgh's locker room. With several veterans gone from recent seasons, new voices have stepped up, but they're still figuring out the balance between speaking up and letting the coaching staff handle the message. Road weeks like this test that dynamic. Someone has to set the tone, keep the focus sharp, and make sure no one allows distractions, including this ongoing quarterback question, to bleed into the game plan. Good teams police themselves. Good teams do not wait for coaches to remind them to lock in. This roster needs to embrace that mindset if it wants to avoid repeating patterns of inconsistency. But before we dive in, don't forget to subscribe to Steelers Nation Central and hit the like button on this video. Your support helps us keep bringing you the latest updates on the Pittsburgh Steelers. And don't forget to share your thoughts on the news in the comments below. The rumor mill is buzzing, and fans can hardly contain themselves. The Steelers have officially announced the signing of Odell Beckham Jr., and the reaction has been nothing short of electric. Social media exploded within minutes of the news, with hashtags trending and fans flooding comment sections with disbelief, excitement, and, of course, the inevitable debates over what this could mean for the team's offense. Stadium insiders suggest that even locker room chatter has been dominated by the arrival of the superstar wide receiver, with teammates reportedly thrilled to have a player of Beckham's caliber on their side. While the details of his contract remain closely guarded, whispers hint at a deal designed to shake up the offensive lineup and inject fresh energy into the team. Analysts are already speculating on how Beckham's presence could change the dynamics on the field, imagining deep passes, highlight reel catches, and the kind of game-changing moments only a player of his talent can deliver. Some fans are even daring to dream of playoff scenarios that suddenly feel more plausible with a receiver of Beckham's pedigree in a mix. Of course, not everyone is entirely convinced. Some skeptics question whether the fit is right or if Beckham's style will mesh with the Steelers' system, while others wonder if this signing signals a broader strategy aimed at revitalizing the franchise's image. Regardless of the debates, one thing is clear. The buzz around the team has reached fever pitch. Bars and fan zones are reportedly preparing watch parties just to see Beckham take the field, even in practice, as excitement continues to build. Even rival fans can't help but acknowledge the shakeup this represents. Social media is flooded with reactions ranging from jealousy to admiration, with many admitting that Beckham's arrival instantly makes the Steelers more formidable. It's rare for a single signing to create this level of chatter, but Beckham has never been a player to generate anything less than spectacle. As the rumors swirl and anticipation mounts, one thing seems certain. Pittsburgh just became the center of the NFL conversation, and the world is watching. That's it for this update. If you enjoyed the video and want to keep receiving exclusive news about the Pittsburgh Steelers, make sure to subscribe to Steelers Nation Central and give this video a like. We always look forward to hearing your comments and opinions. See you in the next video.